Welcome back to part 3 of our beautiful rose painting. Today we're going to start the leaves. So we're going to add light greens first and build into some dark greens. I'm going to show you how to do detailed leaves as well as give you some ideas for simple leaf techniques that you can apply in any of your floral paintings. All right, so today we are going to get started on our leaves. I'm super excited. Leaves are so much fun. What we will do first is mix up some greens. I want several greens, and as I've mentioned before, neutral greens are definitely the thing I like. So I'm going to start out with a lot of yellow here, and I'm going to grab the blue, kind of the bluey purple colors that we have from our shadows from last time. They already have some red in them, which helps me get a neutral green faster. So if you have some of these mixtures, go ahead, use them. If not, you'll just need to mix a little bit of quinacridone rose into your green in addition to the phthalo blue. So you'll start with yellow, add the phthalo blue, and then just enough quinacridone rose in order to kind of neutralize it and get this slightly olive light green. I often end up grabbing colors along the way because I know what the colors are kind of made of. I tend to like recycle and recycle and recycle other colors that I've got on the go and just use them in new mixtures. So I tend to never really wash my palette. I just start with what's there. So I'll probably be showing you that one day because that's just the way I work. Okay, I don't mind that green as my most vibrant, bright green. I will probably want to have nothing lighter than that. I almost could be a little more neutralized, but let's just add a tiny bit more of that color. Let's test this again. Yeah, this is okay as my lightest green. We'll just leave it like that. And let's, I'm just gonna move this around and mix up some more green over here. Actually, this might almost be good enough as it is. This is kind of an interesting color, isn't it? But it's not enough. We won't be able to go very far with that. So let's just go ahead and let's wash my brush. I can get my brush and water in the photo or in the camera a little bit while I mix. So I'm going to go grab a bunch more of my yellow again. And this time I'm going to put even more blue. And I've still got quite a bit of that mixture there that we have from last time. And that's where some people would, oh, I like that green. I almost like that the way it is. Maybe just a little bit more blue. Anyways, some people like an ultramarine blue as their primary blue. And we kind of discussed in our color theory lesson why I would choose a phthalo blue just because it's more versatile. However, if you're really never working or wanting teal type of greens or anything that's not sort of neutral, you could use ultramarine as your primary blue. And so you can really do what you want there. But I use phthalo, which generally then I have to neutralize my greens. So I do like that green though, just like that. So like, let's just see what happens if we throw yellow into here. We'll have a nice dark color. So just wash my brush before I go running into my yellow. And let's see. If I haven't mentioned before about water, it is good to have a dirty, like 2 things of water, one for your dirty water and one for your clean water. 2 jars of water is really nice. Okay. Grab my yellow, throw it in here. It's going to be really dark, but let's see what we get. Yeah, I kind of like that color. Maybe a little more yellow in there. Let's test it. Let's see what we have really on the paper. No, that's actually pretty good just like that. We almost could even have a darker green as well. But why don't we start with that? And then we can definitely go ahead and just make more as we go, or we might want something more neutral, or if we happen to want anything more bright, we can. I don't think we're going to want anything brighter than what we have there though. Sometimes you need it like more concentrated. These might be too watery, but I don't know that they will be. So we're going to start with those. And what I'm going to do is just go ahead and give everything on my leaves a base coat. So let's get this out of our way, clean things up. So what I'm going to do first is just kind of go over all of my leaves with the lightest green. Again, we're just really kind of still doing the same concept. Let me grab that color wheel. You already are getting this in your head, right? But we start with our warmer greens first, which of course is this one. That is the lightest one we mix. It's just, yeah, it's all pooling to one side. It looks darker than it is. That's our light green. Anyways, it's really kind of, it's like this green. It's just been neutralized a bit. So when you neutralize, really by putting a little bit of that red in it, we really kind of made a little more orange. So in some ways, a neutralized version of this is kind of a warm version, but we're starting with our warm colors, and then I will work my way into these cooler greens. Eventually, I tend to not really go like this. I tend to, because I like the neutral colors, I guess you could say I kind of do this, but they're neutral. And I do even work into purple sometimes, but let's just go ahead, get the warmest, lightest colors on there and let them dry. Sometimes I'll add a little bit of the dark green even in this stage, but let's just start with this and then we'll decide as we go how much of the other green we want to add. I guess I can get 2 brushes going here too. Sometimes it's kind of nice to even leave yourself a little bit of white space as you work. So far I'm just gonna go ahead and just fill these in, and you can see I'm kind of almost using the tip of the brush, and I'm not worrying about them touching at this stage. That's fine, they can bleed into each other. And I'm also not worrying about whoops, leaving a little bit of white behind. Sometimes I like that little sparkle, so we'll just carry on, fill this up, and sometimes I even work into the background, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and get these greens on there. This is called super easy after the last bit of stuff we've done on this project, but I'm going to show you some details, give us a little bit of a challenge today. Now this is one shape all together here, so I'll just, whoops, I kind of went a little bit into my shadow there. It's okay. These 2 leaves, they're right on top of each other, so I'll create the difference between them with darker values later. Just get the green on here. And this is where you could, okay, this is where you can start throwing in some of your dark greens if you want to start creating some variation. You can always just drop some into some parts of your leaves. Sometimes I just wait and let that happen when because I am going to be coming in with detail, and I'll do the details with the darker color anyways. I'll probably just go ahead for the most part and just drop in the light green as we're doing, but you can definitely play with a little bit of that. Just going to drop a little bit more of my light green to kind of bring those shapes together a little bit. Okay. This is kind of a different shape here. Again, I'm just working with the tip of my brush, and I'm allowing things to kind of just be a little bit flowy. I'm not worrying too much if I don't 100% touch the edges of everything, because I'm still coming through with more layers later. Sometimes on these smaller shapes, I won't put as much detail as the larger leaves, and that's actually a good time. I'll just grab my paper towel and dab myself off a little here. Okay, that's a good time. You can, if you want to add some of these darker greens, you could, because you could just say, you know what, that's all I'm gonna do for that little tiny leaf is just give it a little bit of variation in the greens. And this one I probably will end up giving detail to, but it's something you can decide to do, especially on the small ones. But let's move back into our other shapes here. Now I actually have a variety of green on this brush. This isn't just the light green. but that's okay because it's behind, so I'm not going to worry too much. I'm going to do these little bud things too. I've got too much paint on my brush to do the finest line. I'm going to come back and do that after. Now I have a leaf back here. I don't know. Hopefully I'll be okay with that leaf. It's touching my bud, but that's okay. We're going to try and push them apart from each other again by showing one part darker than the other later. So let's just go ahead and fill this in. Get more of that bright green going. Definitely, I kind of do like having some of these splashes of lightness in here too. I might just do something like this, create a little bit of interest in these stems because they're kind of boring. Get a nice tip on there. I'll probably want to do something with adding another leaf. I really don't like the way I've got these leaves set up. I'll see. I'll probably do something back here with another leaf. I'll probably create a leaf in the background or something. I'll probably even put a few more in here that are just a little more faded out as I work into the background. But for now, I'm just going to let that dry, or you can let it, you can give it some time on the hair dryer. One thing I'll make note of is when you have something like you can see here, that's, I don't know if you can tell in the camera, but I have some areas of paint that are quite runny and thick. You have to be careful when you come to them with the hair dryer, because sometimes if you're using too forceful of air or whatever, it can just send that, it can create a drop. It can make it all bead and then send that thing flying across your painting. So at this stage, it's like, be careful with using the hair dryer. You can always start really slow and low and then hold the hair dryer further away from the painting and then bring it in. As you can tell, like those puddles are definitely dry enough. Or let it sit for a few minutes until you can see that things are kind of pretty much soaked in well and dried, semi-dried. Then use the hair dryer. You can kind of play it by ear based on how much you have for like little puddles in your paint. I'm actually going to just throw another stem right here, just a small one, because it feels like it could have something. So before we go ahead and actually start doing the details on these leaves, why don't we go ahead and practice some of the details on a scrap of paper, just so that we're comfortable with the techniques. So what I'm going to do is just draw a simple leaf, something like that, and then add some veins. And maybe some this side. All right. And then we're going to talk about shading. Now we'll just imagine this already has a coat of light green so that we don't have to paint it green and then go and dry it and everything. We're just practicing technique here. So let's actually do a couple leaves so that we have space if we need it for practicing here. I don't like how I did that. I'm going to turn that. Yeah, let's erase that. Okay, so there's a couple of leaves, and I'll just go ahead and just do one maybe without any veins in it, so I can show you this technique as well. We're going to pretend that we've already applied light green onto this and that the light green has dried, so we're just pretending that. And then this is kind of like our second coat or second layer. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and fill in, let's do it with a lighter, maybe a lighter green, so you can at least see where I'm going. Because if I'm just using water, you might not be able to see that. So let's just pretend that we're just putting, you could say this is a light green, or you could say this is water, because sometimes I do use color for this, but let's just go ahead and do something like this. So you can see I've left these like white stripes in the middle of this. Then I'm going to take a darker green And I'm going to put it along the base of each of these. So I'm going to do that here, drop it on this one. Now you can see when it's quite wet, when it's really wet, it doesn't stay, it flows around more. And I'm just using a cheaper paper here. Usually, yeah, it might not be a bad idea to practice this on arches because the other watercolor paper doesn't absorb the water quite the same. But so you've basically put the dark on the right side of each vein, and then it kind of gradates out towards the vein that comes after. So I'm just going to use water now on my brush, kind of letting those colors blend kind of just gradually up to the next vein. So you can move them around a little bit if you want to, or just leave them, you know, a little bit the way these ones are just kind of staying close to the edge where I've applied them. That's okay too. We're going to let that side dry. Let's go do the exact same thing on this leaf and just kind of make sure I was clear on that. And in some cases, I might reverse what's happening depending on which direction the light's coming from. The way that I just painted this, we could say the sun, let's just draw a little sunshine here, sloppy little sunshine, but it's coming from over here and it's hitting. So this side is light and then it gets darker as it gets to the vein, and then it kind of comes up, gets light, goes dark to the vein, kind of like that. So we're going to repeat that over here. So I'm just coming in with my light green again. And like I say, you could use water or a light green. And I'm just going again, almost to the vein and then skip. So then start at the vein, come almost to the vein and leave a little white spot or white strip, and start at the vein. Ooh, I kind of went close there, and then come up and fill the rest of the space in. Then you're going to take your dark green. I could even pick a darker green if I wanted. Let's go grab some blue over there. And I'll drop it. This one, I grabbed a lot of blue, but fill that in, fill that in. So again, I'm coming up to the vein as I fill it in. You can also apply some kind of working your way a little bit along this long vein here. And then you're just going to blend that around gently if you need to. Sometimes it's going to just blend the perfect amount as it is on your page, but you can kind of just fill in this space here if you want. And if you, now when I'm showing those white gaps, we're not going to have the white gaps on our painting because we've already filled it in with that light green, right? Another option that you could do is just fill the whole thing in with green. I'm just going to show you the one fast way, and then once it's dry, I'll show you what we'll do. Let's, in the meantime, while this one's drying, just move up to this one and I'll show you the easiest. So this would be what I would call the most complex leaf, but there's a couple other easy ones. And sometimes I'll take a few easy leaves if there's a lot of leaves in my artwork and I don't want to have to like put detail on every single one of them. I might just do some of them like this. So I'm leaving a white strip kind of in the center where that vein is. You could fill it, but sometimes you could even just leave that strip so you have like a kind of the impression of a vein there, right? And then just drop some greens in, say maybe on the shadow side of the leaf, so over here. And you could do it on the shadow side of this side of the leaf, right? So you could put a little bit of shadow on both sides, something like that. Let it move around a little bit and call that good. So that's one option that you could do. And again, you can like add water, drop it around, do whatever you need to do to make it look realistic and pretty. Maybe that's a little bit better. Maybe I overdid the blending there. Whoops, grabbed. Didn't intend to grab my painty brush, but planned to grab the water one. Anyways, you can see you could, let's just lighten that side. The sun could be hitting it. So that would be the way I'd say to do the easiest leaf. This one was the trickiest leaf. This one, what you could do is once it's fully dry, you could come in and add details with the leaves. Now this one, sorry, details with your darker green. This one is too wet to do that with right now. If you did it when it was still wet, you get the bleed effect, which if you like that, that's great. But I think I would recommend, no, it's dry enough that it's not behaving too bad. So you could even do something like that. Then you could decide if it's a little bit damp, if you want to blend those out, you could blend them out just with a little bit of water on your brush. So that would be kind of another option for a leaf. I'm not as crazy about this one, but You could always do kind of a combination of these two as well. So you could drop a little bit of green into each of these. And then just blend it around. It's interesting. It's actually not working too bad because it's damp. It's not super wet, so it's not running around, like it's not bleeding around like crazy. So I'm actually getting not a bad leaf there. So that's one option you could do if you let your light green just kind of get to a damp stage. You might be able to move those around. Or even when it is dry, you could potentially go in and then just use water to just soften it. So this is kind of the third way you could get a leaf in there. And like I say, you could kind of go back and forth a little bit with your light and dark and see if you can create some details with the simpler leaf. And then when this is a little drier, I can still see it's shiny, but when it's drier, that's typically when I would come in and do the other side. If I directly, okay, there's two options. If I directly touch this, right, and try and paint this side of the leaf, it'll bleed. But I could do this. I could leave a slight space, you know what I'm saying, between, like almost like leave that white vein like we did there. Could leave that on that side. Then we could repeat this. So we'll fill these in. Again, I'm leaving that little gap of white just kind of just before the vein is. But I'm also, I've kind of tried to leave a little bit of gap in the center for the center vein. And then just go in and repeat the steps that I showed you on the other side, but do them on this side. So just grab a little more dark and just drop it in there. Drop it in there. And I would probably come in, because the sun, the way the sun is shining, I might even put extra shadow kind of on this side here. And once I'm happy with the amount of shadow I have, then I could always come in and just gently pull it a little closer so the veins are as skinny as possible. But again, when you're doing it on a leaf that's already got that underpainting of like the light green, like we've already done on our on the piece we've been working on, you won't necessarily have to worry about leaving those lines because they won't be pure white, they'll be a light green. So there's a few options for you for leaves, and I'm gonna be doing this most of the time. However, some of the time I'll throw a few of these little leaves in, or kind of a combination of these two. This one I may or may not use, but we'll see. We'll see as I go, because sometimes that can be not a bad technique to throw in if you've just got a small leaf that just needs a little bit of detail, but you don't want to go all the way into something like this. Now, that is drying goofy, I will admit. You can always drop some water in and kind of encourage it to flow around and do something a little bit prettier. I probably was a bit too dry when I did that side there. Okay, let's get it out of the way. So we'll bring this one back into our picture here. So I'm going to do that technique to some of the bigger leaves, the ones that need the most attention and detail. So I'm going to go in and just make sure that those are clearly defined where we want to put those veins. Not quite liking that one, but kind of like that. Yeah, something. Okay, let's go here. Kind of see that vein there, but I'm just going to deepen it just so you guys can all see where I'm going as I do this technique. We'll do a little bit here. My paper, as you can see, is definitely folding and bending. I'll have to iron it when I'm done. I want to show the edge of that leaf for sure. Now this one that's in the back here, I'm going to push it back behind this one too. This one I may do a little less detail, so we'll see. But I'll put those veins on because I can always, usually I get enough dark on there that I don't think it's going to be too much of a deal. I sometimes add a little bit of something to these, but I don't do quite as much as what I've done below. These guys are very tiny, so I have to kind of just decide every now and then how much detail to add. We'll define this one a little bit more. I feel like I'm going to want to add another leaf or a little bit of something, maybe even not a leaf, but when I do the background, I'll want to create the impression of a leaf being there. I really don't quite like the way that is right now. Why don't we start out over here and kind of work our way this way, because we're going to have to do a little bit of skipping probably with some of these being so close together. Okay, so like I say, because we can probably just use water because we've already got green on there. If you'd rather, I can even use a little green so that you can see where it shows up where I'm applying the water. It is definitely hard to see where I'm putting it, so put it here, and then I'm skipping here. You could probably see those skips. I hope you can see where those skips are. Then I probably can come up to the edge of here. I don't know if, I think maybe I've left a tiny bit of light. We'll see what happens when I start applying the darker paint. Because it's a little bit back there. Again, you can, it's a leaf, you've got grace. You don't have to have like a perfect amount of that thing happening every time. Now this leaf is quite dark because it is kind of behind here and it's shaded, so I might just go ahead and put a little bit, I'm going to use a skinnier brush here, more shadow into this one, especially at the base, because it's kind of like, okay, it's definitely behind this area where there's shadow even on the rose, and so it'll even be shadier. So let's just make this really shadowy. You know what? I might even somewhat eliminate these veins as it gets close to the edge, because I feel like that's drawing too much attention to the edge of the painting, and we don't want that. Generally, it's better to try and keep your details and all the special effects for parts of the painting that are, you know, closer to the focal point, where people can, where you want to draw the viewer's eye. So in this case, I might kind of minimize those veins a little bit, actually. So this was not a good example of the vein work. We'll do some more in a minute. I think right here would be a place I'd rather have it, in here. I could try and get a little bit of it up here, try and lift a little bit. I'm not too crazy about what I've done on this leaf, so I'll probably come back in it and play with it a little bit later. Yeah, let's just leave that one for now. It's like I say, I'm not too happy with it, but it's wet and ooh, I'm really messing it up now. Try and lift it a bit. Okay, we're just gonna have to come back, and if we want to add details, we'll do it later because I slopped on that one. Let's go ahead and work down here, and we'll skip this one for now. So maybe I'll use a little bit of light green. Again, I probably don't want a ton of detail as I get really close to the bottom, but I'll put a little bit more right in here because I think we can get away with it. Okay, I'm gonna need to drop more dark in here. So I'm gonna put the dark kind of along here, but I also want some right under here because it's casting a shadow, so this is kind of a little bit different. And then I'll put some on this side of the vein, some on this side of the vein, and then I will kind of let them join together. I'll grab a damp brush and do a little bit of that with some water. Actually, I'm going to use my darker brush for that. Try and pull the darks just a little bit closer to the veins. And I don't mind if I start losing the vein a little bit as I get closer to the bottom, because again, I want this to be very subtle, just due to its location in the painting, particularly along the bottom here. So I'm going to grab a little more. Let's go to this side and see what we can do with it. Getting my table a little bit painted now. Again, darker on this side because of the the way the shadows are happening. I'll let this area here be a little bit lighter, just so we have a little bit of variation in this flower. Or a little variation in the leaf, rather. I might even grab a little bit of darker green, mix a little bit of blue. Ooh, that was not a little bit of blue. I'm gonna try mixing a little bit of this orangey color that we have from earlier into this and see what kind of dark green I can get. It's kind of a little bit more of a forest green, but I'm going to try that in just a couple spots where I just want a tiny little bit more darkness. Okay, let's just leave it be because I'm going to get messing around too long in here and then we'll make a mess. So I'm going to just move on to this leaf. And this leaf, I think I don't mind having a little bit of detail in this area here. And then this one will be one with more detail. So let's move over to those. I've got some pretty dirty green water, so I'm just going to use it to, well, it's not actually looking so bad when I get on my page. I was going to say I was going to use it to do this leaf, but I just painted that one half for now. I'll come and do the other half after. Get our dark green. We definitely want that dark green along this bottom edge, so we'll get that on there first. And like I say, I'm going to come and make those veins a little less bold in a minute. It's better to start when you are working around a light space like this. It's called negative space. It's always better to almost leave that negative space a smidgen bit bigger than you think you want it at the beginning, because you can always shrink it, right? But you can't really increase it too easily. So I'm kind of shrinking it now, but I will definitely come in and even add a little bit more darkness to this because it's feeling a bit light still to me. It just doesn't seem like I've got enough paint on it. Okay, just gonna come down the side here and drop some more dark. It's kind of interesting with my watercolor paper being so bent. It's it actually in some ways is helping direct the water that way. So I guess that's not such a bad thing. I'm gonna throw a little bit more of this really dark green in here. Okay. Let's let that be. I can always de-emphasize those veins a bit more later. Why don't we work on the opposite side of this leaf now? So I'll just go in and wet it. And I think I can kind of do the vein, the strong vein down the center, because I think I've left enough light on this side. Yes. I think there's enough light on that side. I'm just going to fill that in because that's very close to the edge, so it's within the zone we don't really want to be getting a ton of emphasis on the veins anymore as we get super close to the edge of the paper. It's just a concept that's more of an aesthetic thing, composition. You don't want to have a lot of detail at the edge of your work. Even though that's kind of getting a little bit interesting right now what I'm doing. Technically, you want to try and de-emphasize details as you get to the edge of your painting. Otherwise, it just draws attention to the edge of the picture, and you really want people's eyes to be going right here, because this is really our center of attention, right? We did a lot of work to try and make it work out beautifully, and don't really want to make everybody go look over in the corner. I'm going to drop a little more darkness right here, just because, again, the flower petals are probably casting shadows on these leaves and making them really dark right where they meet. Where the leaf will meet the petal. And this is where you can, if you want to, kind of dig a little bit into the petal itself, the flower petal, and clean up any kind of odd lines or anything that happened during the painting process. If you kind of went out of the lines like I did in some places, you can always take that opportunity to clean that edge up a little bit. Not quite liking the center of this. Something's standing out goofy to me. I'll just softly blend it around with my water brush. And I'll use my water brush and just kind of maybe try and gently come in towards the veins. Be careful because the paint's very wet here, and if I get too ambitious, I will lose my veins after all that. It's always better to come in and lighten them off, or it's always better to come in afterwards and reduce their intensity if you need to, than to like go overboard right now and fill them up with paint. You can't get them back as easily. You can kind of lift, but it's nicer to still have something there to work with. So let's go ahead and, yeah, those are definitely standing out to me, but I'm going to come fix them later. I'm going to work on this other one here because this is one of our more important leaves. And then after that, some of these other ones, I can just do a little bit more of the simple techniques. I want to get the more tricky ones done first. Actually, you know what we should do while we're thinking about it? I just remembered there's some green that needs to go in the center of this flower. Let's just go ahead and try doing that. I kind of got tight quarters here that I'm working in. I'm just going to come out, wet this shape. You don't have to come all the way down to here, but just wet it a little bit in that area. And then we'll try and add some of those brighter greens in. So I might even start by adding just some yellow, because I could even intensify my yellow a teeny bit. So throw some yellow, and then I'm going to throw some of this green. I'm trying to get some of the drier part off my palette because I don't want a ton of green in here, but just enough to kind of give the impression that there's a little bit of green down here. Just because you see something in a photo, you don't have to copy it. I don't know why, I just kind of like that green there, so I'm putting it there. You could have deepened your flower, like the shadows in the flower itself with the pinks, and then the cool tones. You could have done that too. Okay, it does get deeper, more intense, or deeper, darker green as it gets kind of closer to the center here. I don't want to overdo it too soon, but let's just try going a little bit darker. See what happens. I'll drop it and just try and barely touch it. Just drop, drop, drop. And the way that my paper is kind of curled, it's actually encouraging it to settle where I want it to, so that's kind of convenient. Sometimes you have to, whoops, I lifted it all out, or too much of it out. Sometimes when you're doing something like this, you have to move the paper, right? Because you want to go flowing in the opposite direction where you want it. This just happens to be the right way. Yeah, some more green, I think, or more yellow in with the green. And if you happen to get it on the flower, sometimes you can wipe it out right away or dab it out with a paper towel. Sometimes it's better to kind of, depending on what's happening, like if it's just barely, it might be easier to just wipe it out at the end once it's dry. I'm going to leave that be as it is. And I will come around and work on some of these leaves that are not touching. So this one I have to wait on now because I wet this shape here. But some of these little details up on the upper bud petals I could probably work on. I'm thinking this one back here, I'm going to de-emphasize it and put it into the, I think I'm going to almost like blend it into the background when I do the background. So I might not work on it. I'm just not really liking it. So I'm going to go ahead and just apply some water to these little leaf things on the bud. And then I'm just going to sneak into here with my paint, doing it darker at the base and then towards the left side. Just going to blend that around a little bit. This is kind of a little bit of painty water here, but I want it to kind of flow. It's looking a little bit, I don't know, too dry and artificial or something. Dropping the water in helps kind of let that green flow around. I probably should make sure I'm getting enough water in first. I do like that though, that's kind of pretty. Sometimes too, when it dries, it loses some of its sparkle and you need to add another little bit after. Sometimes I even like to add a little bit of, say, purple and whatever into these. I might do that as I do the background. So I might just focus on the leaves and the details of the leaves today, then do the background more next time and add the little bits of purple that I want to add to the leaves. Just darkening the edge of this one. Again, I'm not doing much detail to this one because it's kind of behind there and it's not, you can't see much of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and wet the stem. I'll wet both stems. And then I'll try and put the dark kind of towards the left side of the stem. More dark here. Just drop it. You can always darken along the top because maybe that little, the bud itself is casting some shadows on there. We'll darken this. And we'll just let that flow around. I don't want to quite touch in here too much. I guess if I don't touch the greens, the little green leaves, I probably am okay. I just have to be careful that I don't, you know, get too close to them with my water or my paint. And then I can kind of just gently tuck myself in there. Again, more of it to the left. I'm going to lift a little bit there, just drop a little bit of water in there. I think I want that stem to be a little thicker. Yeah, that's better. I'll maybe lighten it up a bit on that side. I'm just going to leave it be like that for now. I think I'm going to drop a little more dark into that one that's right here because it seems like it's just kind of, as it's drying, it's getting less intense and I'm not liking it quite as much. Ooh. Okay, that's better. I moved my water out of the way, so I've got a little more space for myself over here. Just dropping a bit more there. I think that's better. It just seemed like it was kind of just almost, I don't know, turning a little bit too dull there. Let's go back and work into this one here. Dropping in some darks, top and bottom. And then I'm going to do a little bit of detail, maybe a little, well, I don't want to do too much detail on these leaves because, again, talking edge of the painting, but try and avoid it right at the very edge. Yeah, let's just darken the very edge so that we don't chance getting too much detail there. And then I'm just going to use a clean wet brush and just kind of fade that around a little bit. There's a little bit more darkness in here to fill this in. It's definitely a different kind of a shape that we've got going here, but I don't mind it. Keeps the leaves from getting too boring. I might throw a little bit of this bluey green into this one, just along the bottom here. Now the only reason I have so many paintbrushes on the go is I always like one for water, and now I've got one with kind of the blue-green on it, so you could get by without quite so many brushes. Just trying to drop a little bit of green into that one so that it's got a little bit more life. I think it's dry enough we can work on this one now. I kind of don't want a ton of detail here either because it's kind of behind, so I'll probably end up just making it fairly dark. Sometimes what you can do is just decide to yourself, I'm going to put whatever detail on here works, and I'm not going to sweat it, and whatever detail you get, and then the rest you can just kind of let it just fade. So, I'm not minding that actually. Harder you try, sometimes the worse it is. So this one I didn't try so hard and it looks like it's better. Drop a bit of darkness back here. Again, we want to emphasize that this leaf is kind of behind the other ones. And also that it's got some shadows cast on it from the flower in front of it, or on top of it. Okay. Yeah. I don't like those leaves. I don't think I like the veins really much at all on this one, so. I think with this one, I am going to just actually wash most of the detail out, drop water in it, and let the water just kind of create a little bit of detail by running around, and we're going to call that one good because I don't think I really want much detail there. I'm going to even let it run a little bit into this one beside it. I like that dark, so I'm just going to let it run into here a little bit and create more of a shadow on this one. And I'm going to come back in and I think we even work some of those, maybe some of the details out of that one. I don't know. I definitely put for saying I don't want detail at the base of this one. The base of the picture, I sure got detail there, didn't I? I'll just rub some of that out. That's better. I'm just gonna rework the shape a little bit too. I am really not liking that shape of this leaf. I'll probably push it into the background a little bit more when I get to the background. Something about it's just, I think I just did a weird, maybe a weird angle here. I don't know. All I can say is I'm not liking it. Create a little bit of texture in there. We'll see. That's one thing I didn't end up doing with these leaves, is I didn't give them a lot of detail or texture, but we'll see how it dries and then I can play with it later. All right, I'm not happy with this area yet, but I will come back and rework it. I'm gonna come and do this beautiful leaf right here. I'm gonna go ahead and get some of our green on first so we get another bit of this bright, intense green. Kind of lost something there, but we'll see what we do when we get there. Okay, grab my skinnier brush and let's just go this side. Ooh, way too much water going on here. I think part of my problem is I've been overworking some of my shapes. Let's just see if we can do a little less of that overworking this time. I kind of like how that's working like that. Yes, I've lost that there. So I'm just gonna come in here and make this vein in the center a bit skinnier. And you know what? I think I'm okay with the fact I've kind of lost my vein. A little bit of this here, I can always try and pull a little bit of detail in there if I need it. But again, we're getting really close to the edge of the painting there, so I might be fine without it. I might try and add a small bit of texture to these leaves on the outside, just a few, these little serrated, make them serrated leaves. How about that? Is that what they call them? Sometimes those disappear when I get the background on, but we'll see. I'm going to put a little bit more darkness down here. Just put a few splashes of water in as well, because I feel like I'm kind of getting a bit darker than I want to. Let's see if we can go down here and work on these shapes while this dries a bit. Then I'll come back in here. And like I say, I don't know, this is bugging me, so I definitely need to come back in there. So let's just go ahead and add some water. I think I'm gonna just mainly push these shapes back. I'm not gonna try and add much detail to these ones because this one could have a little bit, but these are really more almost to be faded into the background later, I think. I don't think they need to play a prominent role in this picture, so. Just filling this in with my lighter green, kind of medium. Actually, I'm filling this in with the medium green. And then just dropping in bits of dark here and there. Like I say, I don't think this one needs to have too much detail. Darken where the edges are meeting the one above it. Well, let's grab more of that olive green. I'm not liking that teal green that I'm throwing in there. Again, get it nice and dark because it's kind of has a shadow getting cast on top. Whoa, I'm almost out of the painting there, aren't I? Whew. We barely caught that on the camera. Just noticed. Just kind of mixing a little bit of water, letting things flow around in here. I think just a little bit of a flowy leaf is good. I don't want a lot there for detail. This one, I will kind of just do the stems with this. You know what? I don't like how much of that teal green I just got in there. So I'm just gonna try and drag it out a little bit. The other thing I could do is just throw a little bit of like that orangey color on top of it to kind of neutralize it. We'll talk about neutrals one day, but I maybe should have been throwing a lot more neutrals in this. I was trying to keep it more vibrant, but you know what? I'm liking dropping this orange in here, so I'm just gonna do that. This is just some of my orange or my red. Well, it was the orange that I made that was too orange to use for our warm pink at the beginning of the project, so I've still got it sitting in my palette. Dropping in some water to try and create some kind of, letting the different greens and browns just mingle ever so slightly. Yeah, I think I'm going to end up putting a little bit more brown in a few places. That's really pretty. Or not brown, but that, you know what I'm saying, that orange color that, I guess you can't see my palette fully. Running out of the camera. This orange color that I had here worked really nicely in that leaf, so I'll probably keep throwing a little bit of that in when I go to fix this mess over here. Now this little leaf, I'm not doing much to it. I'm just going to get some of these colors, let the washes, the green just kind of mingle with the water, and I'm just threw the one dark green on there, medium dark green. I want to darken it where it's under the petals, because of course the petal is casting a shadow. Again, on all these bottom leaves pretty much, they have a shadow getting cast on them. But you know what, I'm going to make that slightly bigger, that leaf. Okay, I'm going to call that good for that one before I overwork it. All right, I'm going to come in here now and just work on these tiny little leaves that are surrounding this bud. Just drop a little bit of our dark, and this is kind of our medium green. I'll drop some of the dark green as well though, especially towards the left side of this. Ooh, that's very intense. Lift a little bit of it out. Drop a little bit on this side, the left side of this one. Again, I've got a lot on my brush apparently, because it's just, when it comes out, it's really going. Just gonna lift a little bit more here. I feel like it's coming out with just a little bit too much intensity. It'd actually not even look bad to have a tiny bit of a warm color up here, but we're just going to go with this for now. And do the base of it. Just going to drop a little bit more dark there and drag it down a little bit. You know what I might do in this stem, now that I'm working up here, I might go drop a little bit of that orange color again into here, because that was really pretty down on the other side. I do usually like to add a little of this, and I thought maybe I'd wait and do some neutral colors in the background, but you know what? It just is better to do it while it's mingling together and wet, and I feel like it creates a little bit more harmony as well with the rest of the painting, because we have so much, not that we have this orange, but we definitely have kind of a warm tone flowers. So having a little bit of warmth in our branches, leaves, whatever is quite pretty. Alrighty, this leaf I could still do. It's not too terribly touching the one beside it, so let's see. Just drop a little bit of the dark in there, and then I think I'm going to call that good for these back ones. Like I said, I think this one I might just push back later into the background, because I'm not really liking it. I'm going to darken this a bit more even than this one, so that it kind of pushes it back there. Maybe I'll even throw a tiny bit of maybe the orange or some red back there, just to darken things without create a little bit of I don't know if that was a bright idea. That's kind of competing with the bud. Just going to drop some darks back here as well. I tried a little bit of red, and that was definitely not a smart idea. So that's very neutralized, that one, which is maybe okay because it's pushing it back. We definitely need to talk neutral colors. We need to do our neutral background. Might leave that like that for now, and then just figure out as I do the background what else I could do to these leaves, because sometimes as I work on the background, I end up adding more leaves in, pushing some leaves around. Definitely I'll come back in here though and work quickly on this section. And it is kind of awkward with the angle that it is, but I'm going to actually lift some out of this one that's on the top and try and create some more detail with it. And then the bottom one might just fall into place, or it can get pushed back with future washes in the background. I'm actually not minding that already, so I'm just going to go ahead and drop in some of my dark colors. Again, darker where it's meeting the edge of this one, because this one, the flower is casting a shadow on it, so we can get nice and dark right along the edge there. Maybe some darkness here. Let's just move that around a bit with some water. It's better than it was. I can't say I'm especially happy with it, but you know what? We will leave it be for now. Not every piece of every painting always works perfectly. But sometimes you can kind of manage it as you work into other sections of the painting as well. Actually, you know what? I'm doing reverse of what I want to do, so I'm just going to blend this around a little bit with the brush quick here in a sec. Try and get the upper side lighter. Let it fade down. Yeah, it's better. It's not perfect, but this one I know it needs to get dealt with. I'll probably cool it off in the background a little bit, and I'll definitely change some things with it. I think with this one I'm going to lift a little bit as well. I'm just going to lift in a few spots. Sometimes lifting when you've got this much paint isn't a smart idea, but I'm going to try it. I think I'm happier with the way that's working as I lift. You can always come in with a little bit more paint after, but sometimes it's interesting to watch artists fix their mistakes too, isn't it? That's what you get to watch today. I'm definitely happier already with that though. I'm not sure if I should dare try and add any dark edge along this vein right now or not, or if that's going to make a mess because everything's wet, right? Sometimes it's better after you've lifted to let it dry, or, you know, dry it with the hairdryer and then come in and throw in some other details, which is probably the best thing in this situation. So yeah, lifting it. I wonder if, because this is wet, I don't think I want to start messing with this one, but I probably could kind of get it a little bit back into shape too. Let's see if we can do anything with this one and just create a little bit of softness with these veins. I'm just going to lift a little bit maybe on this side of each vein and let it blend in a little bit more. And again, I'll probably come in and once I've lifted this, I can decide if I want to add anything else. I'll probably do it once I dry it, but let's see. Or if I just want to put a little bit of light green, I probably could do that and then dry it. Okay, what I'm going to do with this one, I am going to add a little bit of paint while it's still wet. I'm just going to gently wet it, and then I'm going to throw in some more of this limey green that we've got here. And then I will let it dry, and then I can come in and do a little bit more dark details. This limey green does not go on top of anything that's dark. Oof, I touched my petal a little bit there. As well, I just find the green doesn't sit as well, but it's almost too limey. I'm gonna lift just a smidgen of that out. You're definitely getting to see an artist fix their mistakes tonight. I'm really overworking this. I'm kind of messing things up a bit. I just want to make sure that when I go to dry it, I'm mainly happy with what I've got before I dry it. And then I'll add some final details after it's dry. That's good. Let's go hit it with the hairdryer. I'm not even minding this one too much as it is. This one I definitely don't like. It's lost a lot of its, whatever I thought I was finally gaining in it again. So I'll just quickly repeat kind of do this vein thing quick. See if I can quickly add those in. So again, darker at the base of the flower. And then as I come on each of these veins, I kind of get some darkness there. Not minding how that's moving around, so that's good. And those ones in the back, I'll probably just blend them a little bit with some water. These other ones, just want to make sure I've got enough dark green, because it's definitely, as it's drying, I'm kind of losing some of the depth. Ooh, okay. Now I'm the opposite of too much. Or the opposite of what I had before, which was not too much. And now I've got a lot. There we go. Very carefully, just let these mingle a bit. I don't want to overdo it and have them, like, they need to be blended, but I just don't want to over blend as I drop my water in here. Okay, that is better. Let's see if we've kind of pulled this back into the spot of feeling like it's sort of repaired. I'll get rid of the detail there. That's better. Let's just try doing a little bit of that over on this one now that it's dry and the shapes around it. I'm going to just drop a little bit of this along the edge. Okay, now I'm going to use some water and pull it upwards. Noticing that I could probably just add a smidgen more detail into these leaves here. I don't want to do anything too radical, but as it's dried, they've kind of lost some of the depth that I think they had, which is normal. As watercolor dries, that's what happens. So yeah, I think that's a touch better. I might even do a tiny bit of detail in this here. And I'll just throw a tiny bit of water. I don't want to overwork these little tiny leaves. They're not the focal point, but they're pretty cute. So, all right, we'll call that good. All right, well, I'm going to call that okay for the leaves for now, because I'll probably end up kind of playing with a little bit of the greenery a bit more as I add in the background next time. So I'm going to let that dry, and then, yeah, we'll work on the background together. Thanks so much for sticking with me through this as we kind of pushed and pulled those leaves around, and I think we've got them working. I do hope this tutorial was helpful, that it brought a little taste of God's beauty and peace into your everyday life. And I hope that even watching me with my foibles has inspired you to continue on in your creative journey. See you again soon. Bye.